everyone, we are now on our episode 10 on our study on the book of Ruth. So last midweek service at Panglao AG, we stood at a crossroads. The question echoed through the room like a holy confrontation, Moab or Bethlehem. It was not just a Bible story. It was not just about Ruth. It was not just about geography. It was about us. In that message, we uncovered the tension between two destinations, Moab, the place of familiarity and comfort, and Bethlehem, the place of surrender and destiny. We saw how a young widow stood at the intersection of security and sacrifice, and how one decision rewrote history. But today I want to go deeper because Moab or Bethlehem is not just a one-time decision we make at an altar. It is a daily decision we make in our hearts. It shows up in our schedules. It shows up in our spending. It shows up in our relationships. It shows up in our private thoughts. Moab is the life that feels safe, predictable, manageable. Bethlehem is the life that feels uncertain, stretching, costly, but aligned with God. Last midweek, we saw the crossroads. Today, we examine the footsteps. Because it's possible to say, I choose Bethlehem and still secretly build a house in Moab. It is possible to declare surrender but still negotiate comfort. The real question is not what we preached last Wednesday. The real question is what we are living today. Are we walking the pathway of convenience and comfort, or are we walking the pathway of commitment and compassion? Church, this is not about a sermon series. This is about ownership. Whose life is this? If Jesus is Lord, then Bethlehem is not just a destination. It is a lifestyle. And the decision we make daily will determine not only our joy, but our legacy. So let's return to the crossroads, not to visit it, but to decide again. We stand in the tension of Ruth chapter 1, a crossroads moment soaked in grief, uncertainty, and destiny. Naomi looks at her daughters-in-law and says, go back, go home, return to what's familiar. Then Orpah kisses her goodbye, a tender farewell. Logical, understandable, safe. But Ruth does not kiss. Ruth clings, and then she releases one of the most breathtaking declarations of loyalty ever spoken. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. Nothing but death will separate us. That was not emotion. That was covenant. When I read Ruth's words, I don't see just devotion to Naomi. I see a portrait of what it means to live under the lordship of Christ. Because in this moment, Ruth was not just choosing a location, she was choosing a lifestyle. There are always two roads before us. Even after coming to faith, even after saying yes to God, we still choose how we will walk. One road is the pathway of convenience and comfort. The other is the pathway of commitment and compassion. Moab represented comfort. It was familiar. It was predictable. It was manageable. Yes, Ruth was widowed, but she had roots there. She had people who spoke her language, customs she understood, streets she recognized. There was still a possibility of rebuilding her life in Moab. A second marriage, children, stability. Moab meant security. Bethlehem meant uncertainty. Bethlehem meant being a foreigner. Bethlehem meant whispers behind her back. Bethlehem meant entering a land where her people were not respected. And let's not forget, she was not following a cheerful tour guide. She was walking beside a grieving, bitter woman who had renamed herself Mara. If Ruth chose Bethlehem, she was choosing insecurity over stability, rejection over acceptance, risk over predictability, sacrifice over safety. She had no guarantee of romance, no promise of provision, no assurance of a future. Only this: it was the right thing to do. The pathway of commitment is rarely convenient. It will stretch you, it will test you, it will strip you out of comfort before it crowns you with purpose. But here is the revelation: our decisions are never isolated, they echo. Ruth could not see it then, but history was holding its breath. Because her step toward Bethlehem was a step into destiny. Her loyalty positioned her in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. Comfort would have made her forgotten. Commitment made her eternal. She chose compassion over convenience, covenant over comfort, purpose over predictability. And because she stepped into the unknown simply because it was right, generations were blessed, including us. The question is not whether Moab exists. It always will. The question is, when standing at the crossroads, will we kiss convenience goodbye or will we cling to commitment? Because destiny is rarely found in what is comfortable. It is discovered in what is surrendered. And it makes me wonder, what if generations from now are blessed because of a decision I make today? What if the unseen future hinges on whether I choose commitment over comfort, compassion over convenience? For Ruth, this was not accidental. She did not drift into destiny. She did not wake up one morning and casually wander into Bethlehem. She chose deliberately, consciously, decisively. You don't drift into the pathway of commitment and compassion. Drift always takes you toward comfort, toward ease, toward self-preservation. Commitment requires intention. When Ruth said, "I'm going to Bethlehem," she was not just changing her address, she was changing her allegiance. She left her people, she left her gods, she burned bridges, she cut ties. This was not emotional impulse, it was not sentimental attachment, it was faith. It was an act of the will. And here is the truth: you don't accidentally become committed. You don't casually become compassionate. Those are hard choices, daily choices, often painful choices. If I'm honest, almost every single day, if I followed my emotions, I would choose wrong. If I obeyed my feelings alone, I would choose what is easy. I would stay where it's comfortable. I would avoid inconvenience. I would live for myself. Emotion says do what feels good. Faith says do what is right. Emotion says choose comfort. Faith says choose calling. The pathway of commitment and compassion is not a mood. It is a mandate. It is a steadfast, determined declaration. There is no turning back. The lot has been cast. I am going God's way, not halfway, not partially, not with one foot in Moab and one foot in Bethlehem. Ruth could not send a piece of herself to Bethlehem while keeping a backup life in Moab. It was all or nothing. Everything changed. Her environment, her friendships, her security, her identity. Commitment rearranges your entire life, and it is costly. It meant carrying the weight of a grieving mother-in-law. It meant embracing sacrifice. It meant surrendering personal preference. But here is what we often forget: convenience costs you destiny. Commitment costs you comfort. Every single day, in small decisions and major crossroads, we stand where Ruth stood. Do I choose what is natural, what is easy, what feels good? Or do I choose what is faithful, what is right, what honors God? This is not a one-time decision. It is a daily crossroads in the small things, in the hidden things, in the unseen choices. Every decision whispers the same question: Moab or Bethlehem? Comfort or covenant, self or surrender, because ultimately the direction of our lives is not shaped by one dramatic moment, but by 1,000 quiet decisions. And the pathway we repeatedly choose becomes the legacy we leave behind. This choice does not stay theoretical. It touches everything. It reshapes our values. If I walk the pathway of convenience and comfort, my life will revolve around personal gain and personal happiness. I will quietly ask in every situation, what's in it for me? But if I choose the pathway of commitment and compassion, the question changes. How can I give? How can I serve? Who can I lift? Convenience consumes, compassion contributes. This choice affects how I use my time, my money, my possessions. On the pathway of comfort, I hoard. I protect my schedule. I guard my space. I spend on myself first. On the pathway of commitment, I invest. I open my calendar. I loosen my grip. My time becomes ministry. My resources become seed. My life becomes an offering. Comfort says preserve yourself. Commitment says pour yourself out. It affects our homes. If I live for convenience, my house is my private escape, my sanctuary from people, my controlled environment where everything serves me. But on the pathway of commitment and compassion, my home becomes a refuge, a sanctuary not just for me, but for others, a place of hospitality, a place of healing, a place where burdens are shared and strangers become family. Comfort builds walls. Compassion opens doors. It affects our discipline. Comfort indulges the flesh. It wastes hours. It drifts into laziness. It lives for ease. Commitment cultivates diligence. It chooses self-control. It embraces restraint. It understands that purpose requires discipline. It even affects how we see the future. On the pathway of convenience, work is a burden and retirement is the reward. Life becomes something to escape from. But on the pathway of commitment and compassion, every season has purpose. Every old age becomes ministry. Like Anna the prophetess in the temple, devoted to prayer, worship, and serving others, the later years become some of the most powerful years. Family relationships, they are deeply shaped by this choice. Comfort walks away from difficult parents. Commitment honors them, even when they are flawed. We are sinners born to sinners. There are no perfect parents, yet the pathway of compassion chooses honor even when honor feels costly. I think about a mother who refused to let convenience raise her children. 6 children in 5 years, and she chose commitment over ease. She guarded hearts instead of outsourcing influence. It would have been easier to choose distraction, but she chose destiny. Comfort would have been understandable. Commitment was transformational. And what about difficult relatives? Comfort avoids them. Compassion reaches toward them. Comfort surrounds itself with people who are easy, similar, agreeable. Compassion stretches beyond preference. When we choose commitment and compassion, we remain faithful when others are inconsistent. We forgive when we have been wounded. We love without calculating return. We risk vulnerability. We step outside our comfort zones. We move toward people who are different from us. People who cannot repay us. People who are broken, needy, overlooked. That is the Bethlehem life. Because the pathway of convenience and comfort will always shrink your world. but the pathway of commitment and compassion will enlarge your heart and echo into eternity. And so the question keeps coming back again and again in my values, in my time, in my home, in my relationships, in my future. Am I choosing comfort or am I choosing covenant? Because every small choice is shaping a legacy, and somewhere generations we may never meet are waiting on the decision we make today. Every area of my life is shaped, even governed, by which pathway I repeatedly choose. So the question that rises in my heart is not theoretical. Which road am I actually walking? I have made a decision to follow Christ, but am I continuing to follow Him? Because following Jesus is not a one-time prayer. It is a daily surrender. Jesus said in the Gospel of Matthew 16:24, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." What is he saying? If you want to be my disciple, you cannot build your life around convenience. You cannot organize your days around comfort. You cannot protect self as your highest priority. This is a cross-shaped life. It is a life of laying down your rights, laying down your preferences, laying down your ownership. In fact, Jesus goes even further. If you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you lose it for His sake, if you release control, if you choose commitment and compassion, that is when you truly find it. The great paradox of the kingdom is this: when you try to preserve your life, it shrinks. When you surrender your life, it expands. You think you are giving something up, but in reality, you are stepping into real life for the first time. I remember when the Lord first stirred my heart about stepping into ministry. My first thoughts were not about platform or influence. They were about cost. Not financial cost, but personal cost. What would this mean for my privacy, for my time, for my personal plans, for my reputation? I literally listed the things I felt this would cost me, and the Lord's response came swiftly and deeply. Whose life is this? That question rearranged everything. This is not my life. I surrendered that a long time ago. I am not the owner. I am under new ownership. So the real question became simple. What does Jesus want? He is Lord, not advisor, not consultant, not part-time influence, Lord. And if He is Lord, then the pathway is clear: commitment and compassion. Yes, there is a burden attached to this road. It will stretch you, it will require sacrifice, it will call you beyond yourself. But here is the truth. Few that this there is here is the truth that few people understand. There is no joy like this joy. No blessing like this blessing. No freedom like this freedom. Comfort promises happiness but delivers emptiness. Commitment demands surrender but releases life. When you choose convenience, you protect yourself. When you choose compassion, you discover yourself. The pathway of commitment and compassion may look narrow, but it opens into eternal reward. So the question remains, not just for Ruth, not just for disciples long ago, but for us today. Will I hold on to my life, or will I lay it down? Because the moment we stop living for comfort and start living under Christ's lordship, that is the moment we begin to truly live.